As Mark and Helly travel throughout the severed floor to hand out missing person posters of Miss Casey, they end up in the mysterious goat department that they once stumbled upon before, meaning that we actually get to see some more goat content in this episode. Yes, despite the fact that this episode has a lot of differing plot points going on, I can't deny that the goat scenes were definitely my favorite, because they're just so comically weird and mysterious. And I wasn't even sure if the baby goat thing was ever going to be brought up again. So I'm glad that it was reintroduced so early on in this season, and even though we didn't actually get to learn about the goats or their caretakers, I'm just glad that this storyline wasn't completely forgotten about. Because even if we don't get any more goat-related answers in this season, I think the storyline has become big enough to warrant some answers sometime in the series' future. I mean, you wouldn't get someone as big as Gwendolyn Christie just to have her for one episode, right? This is Brienne of Tarth we're talking about here, none other than Captain Phasma herself. She needs to be brought back for more episodes in the future. But as long as we get some closure to the GOAT narrative sometime before the series comes to an end, then I'll be one satisfied viewer. At any rate, even though the GOAT people are initially hostile towards Mark and Helly, they finally decide to answer some questions after Mark argues that the innies should support each other, lest they end up disappeared like Miss Casey. So they reveal that Miss Casey conducted her wellness sessions in their husbandry tanks and promised not to hinder MDR's search for her. And I don't really know how helpful this information was to Mark, but at least more people are aware of Miss Casey's disappearance. Meanwhile, Irving takes one of the missing posters over to O&D, where he then runs into Felicia. The two cheerfully reminisce over their memories of Bert, but when Felicia accidentally sees his sketch of the dark hallway, she recognizes the location as something called the Exports Hall, which is a place where past O&D employees would take the products that they made, which is an interesting development that may not make a whole lot of sense right now, but I definitely want to know why Irving's Audi has hundreds of paintings of the Export Hall. What significance will it have on the rest of the series moving forward? Speaking of Audis, Dylan is granted an 18-minute visitation with his Audi wife Gretchen, who finally shows him a picture of his 3 children. And while this moment must have been undeniably nice for Dylan, I can't help but wonder what this interaction will do to his character. Because Gretchen tells Dylan that his Audi has had trouble finding other jobs and is lacking direction in life, which means that Dylan may be hesitant to fight against Lumen in the future, since he knows that his family is depending on him. Later that evening, Mark tries to burn an afterimage into his retina in order to communicate with his innie, but he is abruptly interrupted by none other than Ragabi. And I'm gonna be honest with you here, I totally forgot about who this character was, which means that it's definitely time for me to go back and rewatch all of Season 1. And I know I probably should have done that before starting Season 2, but then Ragabi's reintroduction wouldn't have been as surprising to me as it must have been to Mark himself. Regardless, she tells Mark that after burning an image into his retinas will not work at Lumen, and that reintegration is the only way to send a message in and out of the company. Mark is initially skeptical about the idea, considering that it drove PD crazy right before he died, but Ragabi tells Mark that she has gotten better at the procedure and reveals to him that Gemma is indeed alive. Mark then immediately agrees to the process, which I think is absolutely shocking. Because while reintegration was probably an inevitability for Mark, I definitely didn't expect to see it happening so soon. I mean, this episode ends with Mark undergoing the procedure, which means that we're probably never going to see Innie Mark or Outie Mark as 2 separate entities ever again. And I liked being able to compare and contrast the two characters with each other, so I definitely wasn't ready to say goodbye to either of them. But given how fantastic Adam Scott has been while playing both of these two characters, I'm looking forward to seeing how he'll portray the new, reintegrated Mark. And hopefully we'll get to learn more about Mark's history as both characters, since Outie Mark's brain will be learning all about his Innie's life, while Innie Mark's brain will be learning about his Outie's life at the same time. So yeah, a lot of shit definitely happened in this one episode alone. I didn't even mention how Lumen wants to adapt Rickon's book The UUR for Innies for some reason, or how Miss Coble didn't accept Lumen's offer to rejoin the company, as she appears to be scared of what they might do to her. That's a lot of things to happen in just one episode, but I like how each character was given the chance to shine, since everyone had something to do in the story being told. And since each character was given a piece of information that'll likely inform the decisions that they make in the future, I can't wait to see how every storyline is going to unfold. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what'll happen on the next episode of Severance once it gets released on Friday.